Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Franchise Advisory Board. Dave Hansen here. I've got a special guest, Adrian with Snap Pick Fix. Say hi, Adrian.
Hey Dave, how's it going? Hey everyone.
Hey, so guys, let me tell you about this guy. So we are, there's a lot changing in the landscape of lead engagement, even the channels within which leads are coming into your business, or the channels that you should be using to get leads into your business. So we want to talk today a little bit about what's changing in the landscape of lead engagement and the channels through which you can get leads for your business. And also we want to talk about lead engagement automation strategy. So you might imagine I might chime in a little on this one, but Adrian's an expert in this space. So I want to tell you about him and why he's here to kind of guide to help us guide this discussion. So he's been an engineer and actually an inventor at IBM and Toshiba for about 15 years. The guy's got what 85 patents now that you're a primary or secondary inventor on.
Yep.
Adrian's a smart dude, done a lot with AI, artificial intelligence. For those of you who aren't by now familiar with that acronym, and so he's when we say AI though, he's figuring out really creative and powerful ways to tie that technology into automating the way that people engage with leads, with customers and prospects. So Adrian is also he's a dad. He's got a couple little. They're both girls, right?
A
Um,
girl and a boy. Yeah,
okay, so
Sarah and Christian.
Sarah.
Yep.
Okay, I know she. Yeah. So a couple little kids lives in Carolinas, North Carolina. Likes to go out to the beaches and stuff like that. So good dude, a friend of mine as well. So Adrian, what did I miss? Like, tell us a little bit more about you and what you're working on with Snap Pick Fix, and then we'll jump into the topic.
Yeah. So I mean, we were comparing notes on like road tripping and stuff like that. I know you took a road trip out to the Outer Banks recently.
Yeah.
So yeah, on the side, kind of winemaking, spending time with the family. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. And then Snap Pick Fix is kind of a mix of all my passion and my technical training. So I've always been, handy around the house, working on different projects, working with handyman, service pros, plumbers, electricians, getting things done. And when you put that together with artificial intelligence and machine learning and engagement, you end up with Snap Pick Fix, right? It's kind of the only two things I know are house stuff and technology, and that's what Snap Pick Fix is.
Guys, that's a great way to summarize it. And guys, just to give you a quick summary and fill in the gaps here, though, Adrian. But SnapPick Fix they've got a kind of an AI engine that helps with like lead qualification, lead scoring, cross many multi-channel engagement. So we're going to dive into some of those channels. But maybe could you give us a little bit of a preview of what is SnapPick Fix and what do they do to help franchise systems business owners to maximize their ROI on their lead investments?
Yeah, absolutely. So we stand kind of in between that CRM platform and the marketing channel. So when a lead comes in, right, one of these potential clients comes in, we want to engage with that customer as fast as possible, right? Speed to lead. We've all heard speed to lead. We all use that term, and it's about connecting with that person when they are ready to work with your brand. So we help with that engagement, right? Personal engagement, office managers, answering services are great when they're available. When you're not available, providing the customer with an option that they are comfortable with and that they want to work with, be it a digital communication channel. Maybe they want to talk over text message. Maybe they came in through Google and they want to engage with like the web chat or the business messaging on that platform. Maybe they want to come in through Facebook and interact with your brand through messaging. So SnapPick Fix provides that consistent experience for these leads and these eventual customers and clients to connect with your brands and to ultimately schedule a job, right? We work a lot with the home services and the home services space. So ultimately we want to get them on the schedule so that you can go out and fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Well, those of you who know me know that this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So let's talk about a couple of things that you're observing, Adrian, from your unique perspective. Some things are changing in the landscape of home service and lead generation, and I think this is just as applicable to the home service space as it is topically to franchise development, other services that also need to engage clients. It might not be home services, personal care, pet care, elderly care are all categories that come to my mind too. So what do you see changing in the landscape right now of lead flow and channels through which customers are trying to get your services?
Yeah. So one thing that kind of caught some people by surprise, and we were getting a lot of questions about over the summer, was Google My Business going away, right? Everyone had invested a lot of time and energy into building their business profile. And then they got that email that was like, hey, Google My Business is going away and we're putting it into Google Maps. So folks had to see like, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my brand, right? There were still some people that were getting the messages on their cell phone when they set up that initial profile. The customers were coming in and they were answering, Saturday night, a lead was coming through and they were answering on their cell phone. So there was some question about that, and all of that's obviously been solved, but it was part of a bigger trend and a bigger move towards mobile, towards local ads, towards local customers, right? Like the majority of customers are starting their journey on their mobile device. We know that, right? There's nothing new about that, right? Depending on the study that you read, anywhere from, you'll see something like 70%. I saw one the other day that was like 89% of customers prefer to engage through digital channels, right? So we know that there's a huge group of customers that want to engage with your brand through a digital channel. And that means they're coming from their mobile device, right? What features does that mobile device have? And is the brand and the company taking advantage of those things, right? You know where they are. If there's a GPS, right? There's some local connection there. They've got a camera on their device, right? Are you taking advantage of the camera? Can you see what the customer is seeing? And then texting, right? If it's on a mobile device, ask for permission, and they probably prefer to receive text messages or at least a notification through text message. So that move to kind of using a phone as more than just a phone for phone calls and using it as the beginning of this brand experience is one of the big things that we saw. And then because we have all this data, right? Because we have these various pieces of information coming in, now we can score leads, we can qualify leads better, right? We can add some machine learning models and artificial intelligence to all that information that's coming in and find out who's ready to buy and who may need a little bit more time and may need to be part of a nurturing campaign or something like that before they convert.
Yeah, I want to come back to that because we should actually
Okay.
do a bit of a deeper dive into lead scoring and make sure people understand what that means. A lot of folks, I mean, the B2B technology sales, like I've used lead scoring for a long time, but in the home service space, elderly care, pet care, like some of these other like personal service spaces, lead scoring is kind of a new thing, and it's not something that they do. And the fact is that most of them don't necessarily want to worry about the complexity of building it. So having a solution that could do it for them is kind of a nice to have and becoming a must to have, I think, in those spaces, because I would say if we take a step back, one big trend that I'm observing right now is capital. Human capital is really scarce, and so you talked early on about like call centers. If you're front desk admin, if so and so, some people don't even have that and won't get one and can't get one and keep one for more than 3 weeks right now because of the weird employment market we've got, this next generation coming up, and they all want to be consultants and photographers, right? Like there just isn't like a strong, and there's nothing wrong with photographers and consultants. My wife's starting a photography business. So like, but she's not 18 with no education and no skills, right? Like she's a very talented person starting that off, but it's hard. Like this unskilled workforce it's like they don't want to accept they're unskilled. So they need to start at the bottom and work normal jobs. And so I know that's the number one challenge with most of the systems that I work with is staffing the entry level jobs, staffing the home cleaner, staffing the front desk people. Like that's tough. So when we talk about that necessity, and everyone should be nodding their head right now, like, yep, we got the same problem. If you don't, call me immediately and let's figure out how
Yeah, exactly.
you're my next episode, right? But because of that though, we have to get smarter about tech. Tech's like the great equalizer. So this sort of automation that we're talking about is becoming more and more critical, I think, to people because they don't have that staff. Even the call center folks that I know are having a heck of a time keeping the call center staffed. They have to increase their rates because they've got more turnover than they've ever had, and the ones that don't are the ones you should find. They're the gems, right? And but even them, they can't meet the demand of everyone who needs it because they can't staff in their office anymore. So it's a bit crazy that way.
Yeah, we were talking to a company. You've mentioned call center a couple times, and I thought it was really cool because they were basically said our call center is really a contact center, right? Because our call center, if you walk into the call center, it's quiet because people aren't on the phone, right? Because customers are coming in through various channels, and you may have someone texting, and you may have 10 people in the room, and some are talking over social, and they may be messaging this way, and some are engaging with customers different way. So the key there is engage with your customers, listen to your customers, and let them tell you how they want to work with you and interact with you and engage with you, and then engage with them where they are, rather than, have someone scrolling through their Facebook feed and finally hit your ad. And then, they're scrolling Saturday night, it's quiet, the kids are sleeping at home, they finally see the ad. And then the first thing is, hey, pick up the phone and call me. It's like, well, maybe calling isn't the best approach right now. Like they're clearly not, they don't want to make noise. They don't want to talk on the phone. It's engage with them where they are. And then once you have that engagement, like you mentioned, right, using the technology and the tools that we have in place to be able to score them, to figure out where they are in that journey.
Yeah, that's huge. And I wanted to come to channel. So I'm glad you brought it up, Adrian. Just the way you describe that practically, think about this. Like, there are a lot of folks that I work with that are in Thumbtack, or they're using Angie leads, or they're generating leads on their own website, or they're using Facebook, or they've got not GMB anymore. I'm gonna have to like reprogram my brain, but what used to be your Google.
It's GBM, Google Business Messaging. So it's not too far. They just flipped it.
But I'm just going to screw that up all the time. So on Google, your business stuff on Google, right? Your GBM or GMB, right? Google My Business.
It used to be Google My Business. Yeah.
Dude,
and now they switched over to business messaging and the business profile.
Yeah, I know. It's so anyway, just the acronyms, they could have come up with something a little bit different, right? So it's not so confusing. But GBM instead of GMB, I'll get it. I'm going to practice that now in this podcast. But when someone's right there, having them switch medium, it creates attrition, right? It creates a drop off a little bit where not everybody can or everybody will. Texting is on their personal device, in their personal channel, their personal space. Some people like to keep it in the channel that's your space, right? Like, oh, I want to talk to you, I want to do it on this space. I'm going to engage with you on Facebook. I want to stay in Facebook, like you're saying, Adrian. So being able to stay in medium with them reduces that angst of switching medium for people, or sometimes they don't want it. Some people, they can't do anything other than email. Can you imagine the drop off if someone's like messaging you on Google and then the only option you have is to send them an email? You might as well not worry about that lead, because they're not checking their email if they're messaging you on the GBM. Got it that time. So anyway, what would you share on that? Because I think
yeah,
it's a concept for people to understand.
Yeah. You definitely don't want to add friction, right, to that engagement channel. And I think it works both ways, right? For the customer, you don't want to add friction when they're coming through, and you want to make sure you're engaging with them in the platform that they start the communication with. And then for the call center or an answering service or whatever that response is, if you do have a live response on the back end, you want to make sure that all that is in a unified place, right? For an office manager, they've got to be, monitoring the phone and then checking the emails and then logged into Facebook and then checking Angie's List and Thumbtack to make sure all those leads are coming in. And they have like 20 tabs open and they're constantly switching from one to the other. That adds time, that adds friction, right? They're going to have their primary channel, and that's the one that is going to get the fastest response. And then, that other channel, Yelp in the back end, is gonna take a little longer to get the response back. So for brands, that's super important, because you want to make sure the customer's happy, but then, like we were talking about staffing earlier, you want to make sure the employees have an easy process for responding to customers and engaging with customers. And so having that unified messaging platform that allows you to see all the communications that are happening back and forth, and that every engagement and every interaction is going to have a quick notification, and you're going to be aware of all these people coming in from the various places, is key. Yeah,
especially because I feel like channels are going to continue to expand, right? It's not like the universe is locked on these particular channels. Like the devices, the nature people want to engage is going to continue to shift. I've got a young man staying at my house right now, family. He's a relative and needed a place while he's getting his job and his college stuff sorted. And we're eating dinner last night. He's like, "Hey, do you guys want to be in my Be Real feed?" And I was like, from the context, I'm guessing we got ourselves another like Instagram or something. But what is Be Real? I've never even heard of this before. And so like channels are going to keep evolving. TikTok. Everyone thought TikTok was a joke. What, 3-4 years ago? And now it's the #1 platform of social media. Like you never know when the next TikTok's going to come out, but what about Vine? Like, so I think that we have to be smart and pay attention to also the new channels forming, and then make sure we've got ways to engage on those if it's relevant to your business. Now, if you're selling high-end systems management software, TikTok's probably not your zone. But on home services, especially with the rising generation, a lot more millennials and folks are buying homes, need home services, need pet services a lot, right? Like, if you're in those channels, you need to make sure you're engaging and monitoring channels that are relevant to that demographic.
Absolutely. And having tools and technology to integrate into those various channels is really nice, because then on the office side of it, or on the contact center side of it, it's just a new engagement, and you respond to that engagement. You don't need to know all the different details of how to send a message through this platform or this platform or this platform. And you know that by the time they've gotten this far, you've got a name and their zip code has been verified to be in the territory, and they were asked if there's a photo available and the description of the problem, right? Because you've automated that whole process. So everyone's gone through the same flow to get to this point, even though they came from various different channels.
Yeah, and this is where we talk about scale, right? So what you're describing is like, essentially a pre-lead qualification process that can be streamlined. Everybody, if you're in a painting business, there are a few things that you want to verify before you even have a conversation with someone about scheduling an appointment. And so, what have you seen, Adrian, when we start talking about automating that lead qualification, that lead engagement, very front of the experience, the top of the funnel? How are people doing that effectively now? How is that helping businesses?
Yeah, so things as simple as asking for a photo and grabbing a photo and being able to look at something before you drive on site. We've seen requests coming in for a drywall repair, and this person does drywall repair. They were in the territory, and then when the photo came in, there was a tree that had fallen, and the tree was still sitting in the room where this drywall needed to be repaired. And that was like, you need to call the insurance company, you need to get rid of the tree, and then they'll go in and take that drywall repair, right? So just having that consistent process of, hey, let's get all the information together and let's get eyes on this before we send a truck out there and drive out there and fix something, is key.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. What are some other things that you're seeing people are trying to understand and pre-qualify automatically before they even have a human get in the loop and start
Yeah.
communicating?
Yeah. So level of engagement, right? Are they answering quickly? Are they answering slowly, right? If you do ask for a photo, are you waiting for that photo to come in? Depending on the time of night. Is it, something that they're gonna send something over the weekend? Are you waiting for them to get back to you? Are they quick? Are they kind of ready to go with their wallet in hand and money ready to buy the product? Zip code verification, we had talked about that. Make sure they're in the right territory, or send them to the person that owns that territory. A lot of times with advertising, the territory maps don't always match up to how Meta, Facebook, or Google will line up their advertising. So you may run an ad that hits someone else's territory. And so you've got to route that properly. So all those kind of processes, right? What's the kind of job? Is it a job that you want to take? Is it is it a painting job and it's too cold outside to do that kind of stuff? Territory, is it within the area? Is it a job that you want? Is it a customer that you want? All those kind of things could be mapped out and qualified before they get into that CRM, and then you just rank them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you get some of these businesses, you'll get 5-10 leads over the weekend. And it's a matter of who do I call first? And that's where lead scoring is so important. And guys, that's what we call this. I know a lot of folks in the industry don't use that term, but lead scoring is when you're like Adrian's describing, you've got a series of attributes that you use to measure how ready that person is to buy. And with if you have someone like Snap Pick Fix working with you on the back end, they have machine learning that also is identifying, oh, if these guys this is becoming the profile of a buyer, how well does this person that just came in match the profile of the buyer? And they do that automatically, and it evolves and changes over time. Like, that's kind of the beauty of some of these machine learning modules that I'm sure that's precisely what you do, right, Adrian, on the back end?
Absolutely. Yeah, you nailed it perfectly.
Yeah, I know that space a little, but you and I have also chatted, just to be fair. So I'm not that smart. But that sort of thing helps you to know, and your front desk person, or your omni-channel support center, your contact center people to know, who do I call first? I call these top 5, and then I start working on these other guys that are interested but maybe aren't ready to buy quite yet. But if not, let's say you have 20 leads that came in over a weekend, and you just start calling from, alphabetical order, like no idea, like these hot leads down at the bottom, maybe getting contacted by your competitors first. And so it's really about, what is it, 70% predictor of who's going to win the deal is the person who can do the service and actually contacts them first.
Exactly. Yeah.
So make
And
sure.
so tying that into an automation piece so that you do have that really fast engagement. And then once they do engage back, you tie that into scoring the lead and putting them through the sales process to make sure that they get the right response back.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure those who don't have like massive lead volumes, you still want to make sure you call the best lead first. I mean, you have limited resources to do these sorts of things on your end. So they're pre-qualified, they're ready to go. Make sure that person gets called first. And otherwise you're guessing and you're gambling, and that's not necessarily the best way to run a business. So this takes a lot of the guesswork out of it for your team, which I love. Well, let's shift gears for a minute, Adrian. So we've talked a little bit about the trends and the way things are shifting, that we need to stay in channel, some of those things. Let's talk just a little bit about brand consistency. Because a lot of the folks listening, they run franchise brands. They might be emerging and thinking about, how do I make sure I maintain this cool brand experience across 100 locations as we scale? Or some of them might be at multi-concept franchise systems that have 12 brands, and it's hard when you're doing that. You're an Authority Brands, an HFC, a Neighborly, a Belfour, right? You're trying to manage a consistent brand experience across different concepts that have a footprint of maybe 1,500 locations across the country. How can something like this help with that, with brand consistency?
Yeah, so when you bring in automation, right? When the phone script is kind of like that traditional thing. When we hear the word script, I think software and automated script, but most people think phone script, right? Movie script, and these are the lines that you have to say, right? It's a similar process when you talk about automation. These are the pieces of information that we need to get. And whether you're on the phone, whether you're on Facebook Messenger, whether you're on Google Business Messaging, like this is the process to get through. And when you do have conversational interactions and you're sending messages back and forth, this is the tone we want to have. This is how we want to introduce the brand. These are the links we want to send them to. If you're sending them to a contact form or something like that, this is where we want to send them. This is how we want to tag that and set the right attribution on that channel. So that we know that they came in through here, and then we sent them the text message, and that's how they got to, say, a contact form. So building all that out and being very mindful of what the digital strategy is for this communication is very important for having that consistent message, so that and you may have someone that moves from the West Coast to the East Coast, and they use this handyman service in one part of the country, and you want to make sure that when they move to the East Coast, they have a very similar experience and those same tools are available to them.
Yeah, I love it. And because that's the brand promise, right? Your brand promise is this consistent alignment with whatever you're advertising it to be, but that shouldn't be a different brand promise in Tallahassee than it should be in Texarkana, right? It should be the same. But it's often not, because you have a human trying to execute it with an operations manual and no tools, no back end to support it. So they're just kind of like, today we're going to say this. Like brand consistency is a challenge, I know, for a lot of the
someone's watching Netflix and an Angie's request comes in, and this is what they're getting. This is the message, this is a response that they're getting, because it is just kind of a free form.
Yeah, no, you got it. So I want to dive a little deeper into this too, because when you were talking about tone and links and engagement across media, it's different, right? It's different. Different demographics tend to engage in different media. So if you've got somebody engaging on Instagram, it might be a very different person that would be engaging you on Facebook, which might be a different person that's engaging you directly through Thumbtack, which might. So can you share maybe some insights about how do you see people effectively modifying their medium engagement, their tone, maybe the links that they use, not just for attribution, but the style of engagement depending upon the medium? It's got to be different. It can't be. That's the challenge I see a lot of marketers have, is like, okay, well, I'm especially folks at my age and older, they're like, well, we understand traditional marketing engagement, and now we're going to try to copy and paste that into Instagram, and now we're going to copy and paste that into TikTok, and like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So give us some insights on medium adjustment based upon you're trying to maintain brand consistency, but it's got to be tweaked.
Yeah, yeah. And also the medium that it comes in, they may have already provided some information with that Angie's and Thumbtack. So you don't want to be asking the same questions twice, right? Because they might have already given you their first name. And now you want to make sure you incorporate that into that second message. Yeah, but absolutely on Facebook, right? You might want to be more informal, a little more conversational than you would want to be on Google Business. So being able to introduce the office manager early on in that process, right? If you know that they're going to be dealing with a specific person, introduce that name early on, and have that consistent voice throughout the entire process. It's all. It starts usually with a phone script and an existing process, right? Because these brands have been around for a while, so they've got their processes. So you start with what has worked in the past, and then you look at who are the customers that are coming in through these various channels, how are they engaging with us, which conversations are converting to the right jobs, which channels are leading to the jobs that we want to be doing. And then build the flow backwards in the script. And we work with customers to build that script out to make sure that the engagement fits the medium and that it drives ultimately that conversion, right? That's what everyone's after at the end of the day, is conversion, getting the customer in their tool, and then getting them to be repeat customers.
Oh yeah. In fact, and this also leads into the lead, what we talked about for lead scoring, right? Which you might find is a certain medium is going to produce less than optimal lead opportunities, right? You'll have some good ones to hit, but generally speaking, the quality of the lead is going to be lower. So these are things you got to monitor, because everybody wants to be everywhere, but you also can't be. It's hard to budget, it's hard to manage. So sometimes you need to also know the lead quality coming from one source isn't nearly as good as from another. So you double down here if you want to, you're a businessman, right? So you want to make sure you're focused on the channels that are converting. Sometimes with a consistently applied process, you have different results across different media. It means you need to learn from and adjust that process until you can validate that it's just not the process, it's the medium. And then I know folks, I've had people call me and thank me. We don't do the same thing that you do, right, Adrian? But people that are engaging different lead channels say, dude, I now can see that this channel is not working. I've been spending money on them for years, and now we're switching. Like that's a win for me when I hear people tell me that, because they're making decisions based on data, and you guys need the type of data that Adrian and folks like this can provide, because if you don't, you're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping some of it sticks, and that's not a great way to run a business, especially as we look at some of the headwinds ahead in the economy. Like we got to get smarter and smarter about how we spend money and how we engage and convert.
Yeah, and everyone's really busy right now. Like over the last few years, especially in the home services side, we've seen, that there's more jobs coming in than things that they can service, and hiring craftsmen has been a problem. It's getting a little better now, but making sure that you're going after the jobs that are the right jobs, and you're not spending time chasing after a customer that isn't ready, or that you have them on an automated nurturing campaign, right? And you have an automated follow-up. So one of the things that we do is do an automated follow-up. If we don't hear back from them, just say, hey, are you still interested, right? Having an office manager, having a call center, typing a message to see if they're still interested isn't necessary, right? We know that they haven't engaged in a while. Check if they're still interested. If they are still interested, then continue with the process. Otherwise, put them into a different flow at that point.
Yeah, I mean, managing, so depending upon where they're at in that flow, usually timing, right? Time kills all deals. But if someone hasn't engaged to your initial follow-up, you need to be shifting them into a longer term drip. The thing is, let's say you're running a handyman company or a drywall repair. Our homes don't heal themselves. A roofing business, that hole doesn't go away, but you get to a dry season, it's not as big of a priority. But 6 to 9 months from now, it's monsoon season again. So if you're staying in front of these guys regularly, or that you're doing some sort of a pet service, grooming, whatever, elderly care, mom and dad still need somewhere to be placed in the future, right? These needs don't go away. So don't think of it in terms of like a scarcity model, but these people need your help at some point. So this might have delayed their decision because it's back to school, so they got to buy a bunch of stuff for the kids. Like money and available capital fluctuates a lot. I'll just say this: we're coming to the year end. It's not a time where everyone's spending money on home services, but when tax return season comes around, you better be on your A game, because that's when people capture the majority of their net new revenue, right? So like you also need to be aware of these trends in seasonality, and you can't always fluctuate your human capacity to handle that upscale of inquiries that happens in March. There's a reason it does. It's because of taxes. So anyway, I think that the human capital limitations also necessitate, when the market and the seasonality fluctuates, you have to have something that can catch it. You can't just have people sitting there cold for 2 days without a response.
Absolutely. And that response and that flow that the customer goes through shouldn't change based on the time of day that they interacted or the channel that they came through on, right?
Yeah.
Some companies will be really good about putting them into the right flow and following up if it started with a phone call, but then there's Facebook messages that have been sitting out there for 3 days that haven't been responded to, or the call that came in on a Saturday and the voicemail is sitting out there, but then the Angie's request that came in Monday morning got a response faster than the phone call that came in over the weekend, because no one has had a chance to listen to the voicemail or respond back to that customer. So having that consistent flow across all the channels to make sure that everyone is going into the nurture campaign that goes through, that comes through, right? That no customer is falling through the cracks because of the channel that they came in through or the time that they came in through. Technology and automation is great at having that consistent prescribed process to flow information through.
Yeah, amen to that. One last note on this, because you kind of mentioned it in passing, but I think we should come back to it, because it's something I've heard a lot of my clients chatter about recently. They're working strategically on it. The same process we're describing for leads should and ought to be applied to employees, to application engagement, to contractor engagement. If you're subbing, right? That's an area where I see a lot of holes, where companies that I know have realized they can actually automate some of these processes, and then all of a sudden they're finally staffing the way they need to, because they give their applicants, which are probably arguably more valuable to the business than the leads and the customers. If you don't have someone who can do the service, who cares if the lead came in, right? I know in the home cleaning service, especially, like it's just hard. It's a very staff dependent business, and so they have to get creative on how they do it. Their rates are going up because they're maxed on the number of people they can get to work for them, and so they just charge more for services, not because they're bad, but because of scarcity of human capital. So, but this is another area. Give us some thoughts. Have you done some work on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Share some insights.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned it, because we've actually been working with a couple customers that have looked at their business profile, and obviously you've got the leads and the customers coming through that, but there's also potential work applicants there. And so aside from being able to book a job or adjust a job when you're engaging through that business profile, you can also see, are there jobs available, right? Is there employment opportunities? Not just a job in the sense of getting something fixed in my house, but are there work opportunities available? And getting them a quick response too, right? Getting that interview set up, getting them in the office, doing the background checks and all that kind of stuff that's necessary to get an employee in there. So yeah, across Facebook, across Google, there's the people that are going to be coming across your brand and interacting with your brand are not only clients and leads, but you could have potential employees coming through there as well. So taking all that into account is very important.
Yeah, agreed. And even nurturing, the same discussion we had about nurturing a lead. You never know. Like a lot of folks, they might have applied for a job, the grass was greener somewhere else, and they found out it was AstroTurf. And so they're ready to make a change again. Well, if you stay in front of that person, I've never actually I've had this once or twice before. It's been a long time since I've had to apply for a job, but I've had some folks that every now and then, like who was it? There's a big pharma company that I looked at working for like a decade ago. They still every now and then will reach out and be like, "Hey, Dave, I just wanted to say hi." Like, and I've been impressed because I won't ever work for these guys. But the experience that they've offered me through that, once I applied a decade ago, like I'm a totally different person now that might be interested in a different experience or a different level of a job. And if I'm looking right now, they might snag me before I even become an applicant in other people's systems, right? So I think there's a lot of value there on the nurturing on the lead side and the employee side, where you ought to be
Yeah.
in front of these people, nurturing them even past that first engagement.
Yeah, definitely keep that communication channel open. You never know, when they're going to get that text message and respond back and say, hey, yeah, now is the perfect time. Thanks for reaching out to me.
Yeah, it's true. Well, Adrian, tell us. I know that we've covered a couple of key things here. What are a couple, if you were to summarize maybe 2 or 3 key points that you want people to be thinking about in terms of how do we automate engagement? Why should I care? Some of those things. Give us a couple of summary thoughts on what we've discussed today.
Yeah. So I think starting with going where your customers are, engaging where your customers are, and not trying to get your customers to go where you are, from an engagement perspective, and using your default engagement models. So go where your customers are, and then be attentive to them. Give them a quick response, right? That's speed to lead. Like, ask them the questions that you need to know and let them provide that information quickly, right? If a picture is worth 1,000 words, if you can grab a picture from someone and say, hey, we'd love to work with you, what does that look like? This is going to speed up the process for both of us. Grab that information, and have it be consistent across all the channels. So know that by the time you have a job in your CRM and you have customer records in your CRM, they have gone through this process. The zip code has been verified, that it's a qualified job. These questions have been asked and they've made it this far, because that's going to make everyone else's process much easier on the back end. If you're booking going on site, you want to make sure that someone asked, hey, is this a 2-story house, before someone shows up without the right ladder. You want to, these things happen.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that the tools and processes are in place for the staff to make the staff have a happy employment experience, and that the customers have a great experience, because those are the customers that are going to leave you that 5-star review, right? At the end of the day, you want them to have a really good experience so that they come back, they leave that next 5-star review. And they know that, hey, it was really easy to work with this company last time I worked with them. And so let's just do it again.
Nice. That's fantastic advice, guys. Adrian Rodriguez from Snap Pick Fix. How can people get in touch with you, Adrian, if they want to follow what you're doing, learn from you, and look at some of the resources you guys have?
Yeah, so check us out. I mean, snappickfix.com. Send us an email, hello@snappickfix.com, and we'd love to chat with you. And Dave, thanks so much for having me. It's been great to chat with you, see you at the conferences, and get to know you over the years. So thanks so much for having me on the show and having me out here today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for being my guest and for sharing such good insights, guys. One of the smartest people I know. So feel free to, if you want to get in touch with Adrian, you want an introduction, let me know as well. And again, thanks for listening, guys. We've got a lot of different other episodes and resources. I try to kind of not groom, but find the smartest people that I know in a specific topic across all the needs in franchising, for marketing, for technology, for sales, for franchise development. So take a look at the other episodes on the Advisory Board podcast. And thanks for being one of our guests today.